We will not be answering your question until the presentation is over. But please do send in your question throughout the presentation so we can capture all the curious questions that you may have. Now, without further ado, Bodhi, the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you all see this little crab? Happy boy? Amazing. So I just want to start off by acknowledging and paying my respects to the land that I'm on and the waters that I'm by, the unceded ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people here in what's known as Vancouver, British Columbia, a place that has been stewarded by Indigenous nations for over 13,000 years. And one of the staples of a lot of these nations was the intertidal. And so the intertidal zone is the area between the low and high tide markers, in this case, across this 1 kilometer stretch of tide pool that I grew up playing in. And as a kid, I was obsessed with crabs, just like many people are. We love to eat them, but most importantly, we love to know and learn about their behavior. And so exploring the tide pools in this ancestral land was really important to me, and it shaped a lot of my love for the ocean. Another big part of falling in love with the ocean, and today we're going on a journey together, so get ready for some deep dives and some shallow water surfaces as well, is my family. My dad works in the sustainable blue economy sector. He has created a lot of initiatives at the World Bank to reduce plastic waste, combat air pollution, and my mom is a total badass. She's a world karate champion. And I was kind of trained in a way to really literally fight to protect the health of our ocean and planet. And so growing up, living in a place like Qatar in the Middle East, I quickly learned that not all water bodies and not all ocean systems were created equally. And there were oceans and water bodies and lagoons that were actually human made. And there were other systems like the Great Blue Pacific Ocean, Te Moana Nui Akiva, that were the natural creation of water cycles over 500 million years ago on this planet. And what's so special is learning about the ocean and the form of water in many different shapes and sizes got me really thinking from an early age that not only are we all connected to the health of the ocean, but the ocean's health is directly impacting all of our lives at every single moment of every single second of our days. And so being a part of this vast ocean system and living on 5 continents, basically by the time I was 12, so in 6th grade, I started to realize that the ocean was also facing a lot of threats. But just as many threats were solutions, and those solutions weren't just in the coast and with coastal communities. They were also inland, because I quickly learned that conservation on land and in the water were intimately connected, that you could not protect the ocean unless you protected the upstream ecosystems that everything in the ocean flowed from. So essentially, all the terraces and plains and mountains, jungles, estuarine environments, and of course, in this case, the Maasai warriors. And the Maasai warrior Samuel, right in the middle here, who was trying to teach my sister and I how to forage and hunt, although we couldn't really do anything and would definitely get trampled by wildebeest and almost did, reminded us that all of the water in this whole entire planet, including the water in our cells, the water that flows through every part of us, the water that we're drinking now, the water that we continue to shower with and clean ourselves with and feel at peace with, is from this same water cycle. It's all one system. And so that led me to really feeling this sort of empowerment to protect water systems, especially the largest body of water, the ocean, that covers 71% of our planet, from large bits of pollution and anthropogenic threats. And so just after graduating high school, I pitched the founder of an organization called Parlay for the Oceans to build up a youth program and had this crazy idea to get together a bunch of young people, kids, and adults too, their parents most of the time, to get together and reduce plastic waste from entering the marine ecosystem, clean up beaches that were already polluted, and most importantly, educate the next generation of young people. Now, this program that started as Ocean Uprise a couple years ago on the North Shore of Oahu has evolved into a community of over 5,000 youth in 30 countries. And it's really cool to see that a lot of the young people that are in our community now are leading their own programs and internships, their own beach cleanups, educational events, coral restoration initiatives, and others in the countries and communities that they come from. And so it kind of this all led me working with Parlay and Ocean Uprise to realize that the problems with the ocean were much greater than plastic pollution. It was actually the root of plastic pollution that was the largest threat to the ocean, which is the proliferation of fossil fuels and petrochemicals, the inputs of petroleum that actually go into creating the plastics that then pollute our brains, our bodies, and our babies too. And it was pretty crazy to learn a lot of stats about how plastic is touching every single part of our life. But I wanted to really think beyond plastics and figure out what we could do to be a part of the solution, not just mitigate the problems like cleaning beaches, even though they're awesome community events. So I started to really put myself out there and work with people like the UN Secretary General and rather share what intergenerational collaboration can and should look like, how we must collaborate across generations to better fund, upskill, and support young ocean leaders. Basically, how do we train young people to actually solve some of the wicked challenges that we're facing on this planet now? And it was really cool because in 2022, without a button on my shirt even, I was able to talk to the UN Secretary General and a lot of amazing ocean leaders across the planet around what we should do to better improve ocean and human health through working across generations. Just like so many indigenous communities, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have done for thousands and thousands of years, share knowledge. And so that's where I decided, you know what, I'm going to give myself the best job title ever, self-proclaimed, going to be an ocean climate solutionist. And I'm so happy to have that job because it is awesome being able to go and speak to thousands of children and then go and spend time underwater with pink whip rays and Morea on the right and call that your job because there's pretty much nothing more fulfilling than realizing how tiny you are underwater. And so with the students around the world, been able to work and learn from my mentors and speak about different projects and different solutions like the High Seas Alliance and the High Seas Treaty, and also really build community in places like Australia here. Also, as a university student, traveling a lot of different ecosystems, and that's another topic that we can explore later. I've really been able to work on campaigning and storytelling, including on platforms like Apple on the Student Story Initiative, researching and learning more about marine megafauna, sharing the stories of the southern resident killer whales that are actually only 73, actually 74 remain. So this vitally near extinct population, this population threatened by persistent organic pollutants that are killing their babies, by all sorts of die-offs from salmon, including increased damming, really expose some of the issues that these incredible megafauna, these beautiful, intelligent, matriarchal species are facing. And so learning about that really inspired me to work to better build coalition for the ocean. And I just wanted to note that the ocean is under threat and only 8.3% of the world is designated as marine protected areas. Of that 8.3, about 5% is what you consider a paper park, so not fully protected, enforced marine protected area. So it's only about 3.3%, less than that, that's well protected. And if the ocean covers 71% of our planet and we've only well protected 3% of it, then we're not doing a good job. We must achieve at least 30 by 30. Not to mention, marine species like big whales and dolphins have declined by 56% on average since 1970, and big fish, especially, have dropped even more significantly, with whale and shark populations decreasing by over 90%. But there is still a lot of hope, right? The high seas still cover 64% of the Earth's surface, and there's biodiversity that we didn't even know. Biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, or the BBNJ Treaty, is an opportunity to protect the high seas and really fight for our ocean planet. We won't be able to achieve protection of the ocean unless we reach at least 30 by 30 goals. And with the US right now and the rollback of a lot of these conservation goals and initiatives, we're facing a really challenging time. But just as challenges come up, I feel like opportunities present themselves, and the role of public-private partnerships in stepping up to protect the ocean will be important more now than ever before. So, what's important about the high seas? Well, the high seas, and sorry for the Canva animations, those actually didn't look as cool as I thought. But basically, they provide half of the half of the planet, like they cover half of the planet. They provide food. They support billions of livelihoods. About 3 billion people depend on fish as their primary source of protein, and they're essential for 30 by 30. But more than that, the high seas and the deep sea are the common heritage site of humankind, meaning that we are all partial owners of the deep sea. And the International Seabed Authority, the body that governs the deep sea, essentially, the seafloor of our planet, has to actually benefit all of its shareholders, meaning every single country in the world. But right now, what's really scary is that the high seas are under attack, not just by climate change and the excessive burning and our societal addiction of fossil fuels and what I call petromasculinity, but from illegal overfishing, from extreme levels of pollution, not just plastic pollution, but all sorts of chemical leachate that enters into the water column and bioaccumulates or biodegrades down and up the food chain, from shipping and large tanker traffic, from increased coal ports and LNG ports that I'm actually seeing right outside in my neighborhood over here. Increased noise pollution that's affecting our beautiful great white sharks. It's affecting our southern resident killer whales. It's affecting our whales' ability to communicate. And our whales can tell us when they communicate the health of the ocean. Whales are an actual indicator. A study came out last week of ocean health directly, and their song lines can tell us different states of their well-being and the ocean's general health in the area that they're singing from. Incredible. And of course, no kidding, right? Obviously, like whales are dialed in. That's their home. If your home was getting lit on fire, you'd probably scream too. Like we know what that's been like because we've seen what's happened with the wildfires and what's happened recently with more and more hurricanes, drought, wildfires, and extreme weather events. And one that I want to bring attention to in particular, because this is meant to be a story not just of, all the hurrahs and great things and joys of the ocean, but also what we have to do to protect the ocean from existential threats, is the threat of deep seabed mining. Deep seabed mining is a new extractive industry that looks to suck up polymetallic nodules, basically little small pieces of rock that look like turds, and extract them from ecosystems below 5,000 meters, the abyssal plains of the seafloor, for supporting a green transition. And actually, these polymetallic nodules and companies that want to mine the seafloor don't have the jurisdiction to go down there and take from what's the common heritage site of humankind. So deep seabed mining not only is economically unfeasible, but it's a massive threat to the health of our ocean, the largest carbon sink. The deep sea is the largest and has been the largest carbon sink of all time because all this marine snow, basically, when you go outside and it's snowing in the winter and you're on the ski slope, the same thing happens underwater. It's all this sinking little pieces of detritus and all these different phytoplankton blooms and deaths that are sinking and they're storing and absorbing large amounts of carbon that are being stored on the benthic layer or the seafloor of the ocean. And so deep seabed mining is an existential threat. We can go into that later if anyone has more questions, because that's a whole other can of worms to unpack. But no to deep sea mining, folks. Geoengineering can also be a threat. Of course, marine carbon dioxide removal and other forms of marine CDR, ocean alkalinity enhancement, are really important tools to sequester carbon pollution from the atmosphere into the ocean. We have to be careful and mindful of how they affect our ocean ecosystems, of course, because we have to think about if the benefits outweigh the costs. And right now, more innovation is required in this space. And also poor governance. Like the oceans are sometimes a lawless place. You can hear of pirate attacks and also people getting thrown and gaffed overboard on the high seas because technically no one's out there really monitoring them besides platforms that are using AI and new machine learning techniques like Global Fishing Watch to keep an eye on dark vessels or shadow vessels. Um, I won't go further into the bad things happening in the ocean, but there's a lot of stuff that will blow your mind away. I want to talk about some of the ways that the ocean heals us and gives us hope, and now what we can do going forwards. So for me, I love green sea turtles and humpback whales. Green sea turtles because in Moorea here on the left, these are both photos from the island in French Polynesia that's known as one of the most famous islands on the planet because it's one of the few places you can actually legally dive with humpbacks, is really, really special because you can actually spend time with these creatures underwater and get to know them. So it was a really special interaction with these humpbacks and the green sea turtle. The green sea turtle, because it comes back to the same place where it lays its eggs after about, depending on its life cycle, about like 20 years. And it comes and lays its babies in the same beaches. And that's why we have to keep our beaches clean. We have to make sure that our turtles and our whales still have their ecosystems protected with little and less ship traffic. That means better ecotourism. And with these whales, because this mama and calf actually came and checked us out for a long time and did a full breach next to us. And we used this photo to then create a campaign to free Captain Paul Watson, who's been working to protect whales for a long time, that went super viral. So that was awesome to actually use this incredible story and experience to support the continued protection of whales, not just go on a nice vacation, dive with whales, and take cool pictures, but actually help to protect them, right? That's the kind of stuff that really fills my cup, fills my soul. And so I wanted to talk to you about a couple ocean content campaigns. At COP29 that recently just happened, the ocean was completely neglected. I mean, completely left out of the picture. And oftentimes, the ocean, despite being obviously the elephant in the room, because it's literally the biggest, most incredibly biodiverse, and it contains 99% of the Earth's biosphere, but it's still left out of the conversation, was really unrepresented. So, the Wisdom Keepers delegation that I attended COP with really represented the ocean in all that we can. But what I'm saying here with content is that building movements and building actual tools to get people to take action based on social media content campaigns can be really, really powerful. And so defending whales um, is not a crime was the Captain Paul Watson campaign. And over the years in Moorea and across the world, we've done a lot of campaigns and collaborative activations with organizations like Earthrise and Time for Better and Future Swell that have really been about sharing the stories of ocean communities and ocean solutions at work. And so I guess a quick interim call to action is really get to know your story, really share your story, because that is important for ocean and human health, because that's what people care about. People a lot of the times connect through the ocean through other people. A, they're living vicariously through others, or B, ideally, you're getting to experience this place and then realizing you need to protect it together. And I think this is the power of content and campaigning. And these are some of the campaigns that have worked really well, generating hundreds of thousands of views, but more importantly, thousands of actual direct actions to free Captain Paul Watson, to invest in indigenous-led ocean conservation, to stop the extractive practices and defund deep seabed mining, to understand fish farms and other extractive industries that can be lethal to ocean health. And also, not just saying no to things, but saying yes, providing alternatives and benefits. And I just wanted to recently bring up Noah, because obviously that's been at the top of people's attention and mind. Um, I believe over a week ago on Thursday, there were 800 staff cuts. The following Friday, there were 200 cuts to NOAA and the National Weather Service. And for those of you who don't know, NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They're responsible for basically all of our ocean climate data, weather reporting, basically all the essential services to know what is going on with our ocean climate and planet. They also do global phytoplankton abundance and collaborate with institutions like NASA. And unfortunately, Doge has just left behind really a trail of tears, cutting so many important organizations and staff at those organizations. So what we did is create a campaign with Future Swell to help save NOAA. Obviously, we can't necessarily control what the US federal government does because they have decided to take a very terrible turn of events, but we can decide what we do as a community to rally together and actually say, hey, this is not okay. This is ocean tyranny. We have to stop this and we have to band together and make sure that we protect our data. So there are all sorts of initiatives to save NOAA, build ocean data hackathons, store data, and do so much more. And it makes me happy to see that even though there aren't any silver linings with NOAA's cuts, the community is coming together more. And that's really important. Um, and on the note of community, I think we find community in so many ways. One of the ways that I found community is through working with the team at Patagonia and realizing that brands and organizations are also part of this community, and that we have to build community across data science, we have to build community across brands, we have to build community across youth groups. And we also, in building community, have to stay humble, because as a community builder and as someone that's always looking to connect and find other pathways to accelerate ocean action, we often realize that what we're trying to keep alive and healthy is also what's going to keep us humble and on our feet. And I think just getting absolutely pummeled by big frothy waves reminds me that it's all a part of this larger story, that we're literally in this active relationship with the ocean that's always teaching us something. If we're able to listen, if we're able to quiet our minds, shut off, and really internalize the lessons, there's so much that we can learn. And that feels really powerful. It also leads me to this really special textbook that I highly recommend as a resource for folks that want to learn more about oceans and human health, the medicinal benefits of the ocean, some of the economic and ecosystem services that the ocean provides, the communities that have been traditional voyagers of the ocean, and so much more. This book was written primarily by my dear mentors, Laura Fleming and Lota Creencia. It was co-authored by a number of very, in my life, influential, incredible economists and health scientists and epidemiologists, talking about the ocean and medicine. And I actually got to write a short chapter in there about youth engagement and the ocean and how young people are helping to step up to boost oceans and human health, or OHHH, because ocean health is equal to human health. And it's just a really cool process to be a part of these intergenerational movements to restore the health of the ocean. And I think there are a lot of opportunities now that are opening up, that are presenting themselves, that really allow us to better contribute to the health of the ocean, or to find other pathways, even if we don't work in the ocean, but we work in clean tech or work in the marketing space for environmental toothbrush companies or whatever it is. Like, there's so many ways to think about the ocean and oceans and human health in your work and in your life, even if that's not directly what you're working on, because quite literally the ocean touches everything. So I encourage you to introspect about this as well. That's call to action number 2. Call to action number 3 is that intergenerational collaboration is critical for planetary regeneration. There is no way that we're going to heal the ocean if we don't work across generations. Also, sorry, my dog is biting a bone in the background if you can hear crunching. So we have to be able to really fund the next generation of leaders, transfer knowledge across generations, be better storytellers and stewards of the ocean, and most importantly, understand that young people want to be supercharged. Young people want to be upskilled and have jobs in the blue economy. So let's provide the pathways and work together with organizations, exactly like platforms like Terra, and actually build up meaningful job opportunities in the blue economy. That is critical, as critical as it gets. Now I'm going to touch on Indigenous ocean stewardship and then wrap up with a direct call to action through an organization that I've been working with. So, obviously, Indigenous ocean stewardship is critical to ocean conservation. Um, Indigenous peoples' participation and knowledge is not only important for 30 by 30, but it's important forms of science. I want to acknowledge Uncle Sol, whose house burned down actually in the Lahaina fires, and on the right, a leader from Maui and a Hawaiian elder that has taught me a lot, and came up to the deep seabed mining moratorium event that we led here in Vancouver to stop the metals company, a deep seabed mining company, from getting continued permitting. We helped to reduce their stock value so much and have investors pull out that they actually couldn't trade on NASDAQ anymore, which was awesome. So we made some really powerful shifts, and Uncle Sol, this elder, particularly spoke up about the threats of deep seabed mining and the importance of Indigenous science. Um, I also wanted to flag this really incredible report that a lot of Indigenous ocean elders, scientists, and folks that have really been focused on ocean conservation have noted. If you want, feel free to take a screenshot or just make a quick note of this, because it's a great paper if you're interested at the intersection of sustainable ocean plans and Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous science with traditional knowledge holders. It's a paper that, even though is part of still a colonial institution, the High Level Panel for a Sustainable Ocean Economy really looks to decolonize the ways in which we think about Indigenous knowledge and understand that it's just as much a science as Western science. Very important note. I also wanted to flag a really awesome organization that is actively embodying Indigenous ocean conservation. and biocultural stewardship, or biological and cultural resurgences. It's Hokulea and Polynesian Voyaging Society. And I know from my friend who runs Future Swell, Krissa, that Hokulea just had its 50th year anniversary, I believe, back in Hawaii. So very exciting times. They do educational voyages, they bring the canoe into the classroom, they build curriculum for ocean conservation, and they share Hawaiian language resources and stories. And I think organizations like this are a great example of the power of Indigenous ocean conservation techniques, the power of what we can do when we learn from traditional knowledge holders that you can voyage the entire planet on a small vessel, a double-hulled va'a sailing canoe, just with the stars, no navigational devices. Sorry. Um, I also wanted to flag that we have that I'm not, although I'm not an indigenous person, my background is from central India. My ancestors followed the path of water from the plains of Scotland, and also from China, and I'm Malaysian Chinese and a bit Pacific. That there are a lot of indigenous knowledge practices like two-eyed seeing and the Maori double-hulled canoe, and different methods that teach us about intergenerational knowledge that we must learn more from. I'm not going to share too much about these cultural practices because as an ally, it's not fully my place. However, I do want to acknowledge the amount of, stewardship and resemblance of really important techniques that Indigenous people have held that can now be learned from, and even when done properly, integrated into ocean and climate solutions. That's what I've been working on across the ocean with Indigenous elders. The photo on the left is over the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean, and I see Courtney from who is on the Earth One vessel here tuning in, which is awesome. And the incredible team on the right from the Wisdom Keepers delegation is essentially a group of Indigenous elders and leaders and youngers as well that have all worked at the intersection of climate justice, climate finance, and Indigenous rights. And so it's been really incredible to build coalition with them. Also build coalition with Pacifica elders for the deep seabed mining moratorium events, and in general, just to learn. Actually, Hanano Murphy, who's one of my mentors, along with Uncle Soul, here on the right, repping the Patagonia, was actually an incredible ally and has been for Moana. She did the Tahitian translation of Moana. Although she was not paid by Disney, crazy. Yep, we should definitely figure out how to change those systems. Big organizations, continuous extraction over Indigenous people. Sidebar. We really need to understand like the knowledge that these elders have and how important it is to shaping contemporary solutions. I think they're perhaps the most important keys to unlocking a healthier blue economy. Also want to acknowledge the wisdom keepers and the importance of different types of prayer and ceremony, religious, non-religious, spiritual, non-spiritual, in all its forms, and how that has a key role to play. I'm going to move a bit quicker here so we can get to the Q&A, but obviously a lot of this has been a story, and hopefully I'm going to be able to leave you with some very useful and tangible takeaways. But just want to say that I think respect for your elders, for Sister Fire on the left, a Maori sonic weaver, whale keeper, for Uncle Rurunga, a very talented dancer and singer and artist from Australia focused on Aboriginal art, is that we need to focus on changing the very systems in which created the climate crisis. And I think this kind of intersectional root approach has really been influenced by the Wisdom Keepers delegation at the United Nations climate change conventions, at COP29, at COP28, COP27, doing the constant advocacy that we've worked on, and just acknowledging and sharing not just the stewardship work of the elders, but their actual calls to action, like Grandma Helen here on the right in the Sami Nation, sharing how reindeer populations and Arctic ice is rapidly shifting as a result of ocean climate changes, or Jacob Johns in the middle of this photo sharing how we have to really start paddling our canoes together from different nations and regions in order to better strengthen ocean conservation practices in a space that has been constantly fragmented, or Jahaira sharing how we have to protect who's Amazonian and represents over 200 tribes with the awesome, beautiful necklace made out of boar's tusks. How we have to directly work together to protect cultures just as we protect the environment. So those are just some lessons I've learned from my elders. And also, a lesson that I learned while being live on CNN with David Suzuki was that we really have to focus now more than ever before on strengthening the health of our nature-based economy, an economy that's really focused on valuating nature's true assets on the balance sheet is ecosystem services, especially as they come down to our commons. That's, again, a whole other massive conversation. I wanted to touch base on an organization that I highly recommend you checking out. We just put out a really cool documentary that can really be kind of a springboard for further discussion and just information around indigenous ocean conservation, these tools that we've been going over that is a huge part of oceans and human health. And then again, skimming through. So the Earth Elders is focused on protecting Mother Earth, and it has a Council of Earth Elders and 4 other initiatives. Houses of Original Thought, which are basically small indigenous-led schools, storytelling, advocacy, and intercultural dialogue initiatives, the restoration of 52 sacred biocultural sites, and the Rights for Nature campaign. Right now, it's 13 wise elders, and it's looking to expand with elders from around the world. So if this is an initiative that you have elders that you think of or would like to learn more about, please look up the Earth Elders. I can drop the link in the chat. We're focused on 52 biocultural territories and their coastal regions. And although I won't get into all of this because this can be, you can learn more about this on Earth Elders. There is a prophecy called the Eagle and the Condor prophecy that speaks from Mother Earth and Mother Ocean that these elders are following by. What I really wanted to share is this new concept of traditional ecological knowledge, the University of Mother Earth initiative that's empowering future guardians, and the initiative that we're working on actively called the University of Mother Oceans initiative. I just threw in this picture. There are tons of other amazing people, stewards, ocean guardians that represent ocean education. And what we're doing is going to create a kind of, educational site on an active vessel that will go around the world with traditional knowledge holders, scientists, educators, storytellers, community builders, with ocean climate data geoscientists and people with very niche skill sets and also very broad storytelling skills. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of words. And go and share these important lessons and create like a university on the ocean. It's going to be amazing. So if anyone's interested, please do reach out. Wanted to again pay my respect to my elders, especially Mindahi, Rutendo, and of course, and Solnas Cruz and Huanca Inti from Peru, and just say everything that I've learned and shared today has been passed down from my elders and ancestors. What we have to do is most importantly, unite for Mother Earth, because just as the ocean connects us all, the Earth and all of her systems connect us all. They're one and the same. And so this council of 52 elders to protect 52 biocultural territories is, again, a vital thing that we have to do to our transition for a nature-based economy. We're collaborating with a lot of great people. This is a call and invitation for ocean people, environment people, discussions that people want to get into is indigenous ocean financisms. I briefly wanted to touch on the fact that indigenous people, although they steward in some cases, based on a report that's actually slightly disputed, over 80% of global biodiversity, and actively, based on reports, protect over 47% of ecosystems on land, receive less than 0.01% of all of all philanthropy, meaning that the ocean only gets 1% of global philanthropy, and indigenous people get less than 1/100th of that. And considering how big this is in terms of indigenous people's outsized benefits to the ocean, we have to start filling that gap. So I've been working on filling that gap based on these principles around blue growth and blue justice. I'm not going to touch on this, but I wanted to flag the academic papers that inform some of these conversations just to cite my source in a time where it seems like misinformation and disinformation is proliferated. It's just blue growth and justice is tenure and access, gender equity, small scale fisheries, environmental and ocean justice, human rights, ecosystem services, inclusive governance. It focuses on different aspects in an academic and practical setting around defending the ocean and making sure that all people, especially those closest to the challenges, are part of the solution. So, um, wanted to leave you all with a couple key points. 3 values of regeneration, reciprocity, and respect that I think are perhaps more important now again than ever before. That the ocean is the beating blue heart of this planet. So let's continue to love the ocean and love and be kind to ourselves as we are to each other. We need to work on that as well. In a time where things are being cut and changed very quickly, the ocean can remind us that love is a powerful force for change, that the ocean doesn't just come in the ocean, it comes in all water bodies. And regardless of where you are, you're connected to the ocean because it flows from upstream ecosystems, from the waterfalls of the jungle down to the sea. And most importantly, that the ocean is a powerful matriarchal being. And in order to better protect the ocean, we must learn from our elders, especially our grandmas, our moms, the women in our life, and learn from the matriarchs that have actually guarded the ocean for the longest time, especially in communities up in rural, remote areas and underwater, like the southern resident killer whales or other whale species that are all matriarchal. The women are the boss. And perhaps that's a really important shift that we need to take in to stop petromasculinity and the extractive fossil fuel economy that we're currently based in. Um, and then also have acceptance and especially release of some of the challenges. I think part of our mental health and well-being is just allowing ourselves to let go and surrender to what's happening as we're continuously doing our best to change things in the best possible way that we can. So accepting that this is part of a greater, challenge that the ocean will face and that we all need to band together and to remember our roots, remember where we come from, the waters and paths that we walked, and always to learn from the underwater creatures that are our biggest guides. And I think on that note, we have to sail and paddle together as we go on this voyage around Te Moana Nui Akiva, the great blue Pacific Ocean that unites us all. And the key for ocean and human health is not just community, it's realizing that our health and the ocean's health are innately linked. And with the beating blue heart of the ocean being the beating blue heart of our bodies, we have to just always come back to the fact that no ocean, no climate, no life, and a healthy ocean, a healthy climate, and abundant life on this planet. Thank you so much for listening to that presentation a bit longer than I expected. I just wanted to show you guys as many beautiful visuals as possible. And I'm gonna stop screen sharing. And I know we have a lot of questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Bodhi, for such an amazing talk. We have a lot of conversations happening in the chat. I'm gonna bring up, we have 2 folks here that have asked several questions. I'm gonna bring them up. And before that, I also will ask for all the attendees, we still have 30 of you. If you're in a position to turn on your camera, it'll be amazing to see your faces. It's always nice to see people where they are as opposed to black screen. So thank you. I already see some people coming online. And I am going to now spotlight Alyssa, who has quite a few questions. And please feel free to share 1 or 2 that you have, and we can come back to you if we have time at the end.
Oh, good. I refrained after 4, but I have plenty. I think probably the big one is a little bit of an open-end one, which is, do you have any favorite success stories around the world of, governments working together or transitions from fisheries to ecotourism, just basically where have we gone right in or in taking the step in the right direction that you'd sort of point to as maybe a North Star or something to inspire.
Well, that's a great one. I would say the best example that I've seen of a project that's indigenous led, co-financed with governments is the Great Bear Sea Initiative that's here in British Columbia. It's a community led initiative that aims to restore a massive amount of ocean ecosystems, bring jobs to hundreds of thousands of native people in 16 coastal First Nations. I was going to include that in the presentation, but then I was going to for sure be over time because I'm so stoked on it. But basically, it's managed by a sovereignly run indigenous finance group called Coast Funds that's based out of Vancouver. And what they've done is actively gotten $900 million from the government of Canada and private philanthropists and investors to steward massive amounts of ocean ecosystems, bring back their traditional cultural practices, work on the cutting edge of ocean science, data, marine renewable energy, and honestly, just ocean tech, and actively restore their cultural practices of traditional guardianship programs. So having, for instance, the Haida people in Guayhanas in Haida Gwaii going in and teaching the Department of Fisheries and Oceans in Canada, which needs to improve a lot, how to properly account for whales migration, how to like know where their ancestral feeding grounds were, the clam gardens, the sea gardens, other forms of mariculture and aquaculture. So I would say that's the best example. And then I can drop a couple links in the chat as well. And then if people want to follow up on any of these points, I'll also drop my email in the chat. But yeah, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn anytime. And thanks for the funny comments. There, this is awesome.
Amazing. We do have quite a few people that ask for links throughout the presentation. So yes, if you want to share your email or a way to get in touch, then we can follow up with you directly. Next stop, I'm going to bring up Yoni, who also has a question.
Thanks so much. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hold on one second.
Amazing presentation. I put my appreciation for it in the chat. So I'll save that now. I was just wondering if you have where we can learn more information about that company whose stock you managed to get to drop so fast they had to stop trading. It's super inspiring and encouraging. Like many of the examples you shared through this talk, just feel like the leading with the solutions and a sort of hope, particularly at this moment, is really energizing and something we need so much more of. So I'm curious if there's a case study of that, and if not, would love to help work on one.
Oh, wow. Thank you for the question and offer. So to answer your question, there is, even better than a case study, a video series coming out around how we did that. That's going to be released on the Sustainable Ocean Alliance's Action Network. And it's going to be a 6-part series that anyone in any country can use to pull from not only the economic arguments, but the actual skills and tools that we use to organize. It's not just from me. There's way better organizers than me, so many, which is awesome, all around the world that have been working on deep seabed mining advocacy for like, I would say over 7 years now. And they have the exact tools of the Metals Company, which is the name of the company. If you literally go on the Metals Company website, you'll see that they're like masters of greenwashing and blue washing. And it's really interesting to see because, you know, in these videos that we recorded at the UN Oceans Conference and our Oceans Conference around deep seabed mining and the moratorium, like a lot of these companies are still deeply under the table, kind of influencing what's happening at these international conferences and the body that controls the deep sea, the International Seabed Authority. So I know this is a lot of information, especially for like folks new to deep seabed mining, but there's a whole video series coming out. Yeah, if you drop me an email, I can send it, or I think it's gonna come up on Sustainable Ocean Alliance, and I'm gonna share it as soon as it's out. In the meantime, check out, just literally look up the Metals Company. I think it'll reveal a lot of insights for you. And then I haven't published a case study, so if you do want to help with something like that, I think it'd be cool in the literature, because it'd be great to show all the other case studies. But I will say one funny thing really quick is that we also got we airdropped 1,000 students that came to the rally because I got 1,000 like people from my school and my friends and like my friends to recruit their friends and their friends and the elders' friends and everyone's friends because we're all friends of the ocean. Well, we need to be to do all these digital campaigns on this app called the Chili app. They're on Instagram. They're just at Chili. And what we did was airdrop people direct actions that they could do. So the first was leave a bad Google review. So we dropped their SEO off of Google. So like when people look them up, they wouldn't even show up, which was so funny. And then the second thing that we did was send, I think like 50,000 automated emails to the government of Canada, including Prime Minister Trudeau, and also Joyce Murray, the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, saying like custom emails using AI tools to basically say like young people don't want this, or like elders don't want this, like no one wants this. It's bad for our economy. It's bad for jobs. It's bad for the health of the ocean, and it's especially bad for Indigenous people. And then we also got a petition with the Oxygen Project and Ocean Uprise and a couple of other ocean organizations, Sustainable Ocean Alliance, of like 250,000 people in a week. And then went up to like 3 million, I think it's at now, saying no to deep sea mining. So it was like, it was so much more than just like me and my friends. It was like the whole world coming together and millions of people. But I think it just shows you like the amount of people that can get behind something when they really care and when people care about a cause, which is really exciting to see. And I think we need to use that tactic now. Yeah. Thanks.
Amazing. And we're gonna bring up one more person to ask his question. Ree, would you like to share your question? You're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, Rye might be shaping surfboards right now. He might not be. Yeah, he can't. So, shout out to Rye on the call here.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Can you hear me?
He's a
Okay. Yes, there you
Now
are.
we can hear you guys.
Oh, I thought you said Reed. I didn't hear Ryan.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, I pronounced it. Right.
I've been watching. I'm in my shaping day making eco-friendly surfboards, but I'll get right to it in the essence of time. I live in the South Bay, so I was part of the fires. We didn't lose property. We were down in Redondo Beach, but this entire conversation really struck a chord with me because I've been doing beach cleanups. I've been trying to get accurate reports on the true scope of the ecological disaster, and the mainstream media is not even talking about how bad it really is in the ocean. We know about all the property that was burned, and it's terrible and tragic, but it hadn't rained yet. And so we got pretty heavy rainfall about a month ago, a little bit of rainfall last week, and we're expecting a pretty big and significant storm this week. And we have two organizations that are reporting results that are 6 weeks behind. We are a little over 2 months after the fires, and we have really no accurate testing and displaying of this information of just really how awful our ocean health in the Santa Monica Basin is. And it's not rocket science. Based on most people watching this already know this, but with my own eyes, last week after the rain and after significant wind, I've been in this region for 25 years. I've never seen the beach and ocean how toxic it. I've just never seen it. And they had closed 9 miles of beach from the Palisades south to Dockweiler. In those 2 months, we've had 3 dead whales wash up, and we have pinnipeds, seals, and sea lions that are dying from dominant acid that they're getting from algae blooms. Well, we know that algae blooms are created from increases in bacteria such as really toxic fire debris and runoff. So my question, Bodhi, is how the heck do we help this situation, at least educate people what's really going on? What's the solution? Because our local government is failing us. I'm not trying to get political, but they haven't cleaned anything. And so every time it rains, we get runoff into the Santa Monica Bay, and that is all these cities. And so if you get outside of Palos Verdes and you go way past north of Malibu, you're relatively safe, but we're talking about a few million people that are affected by this. It's awful. All the local seafood, how long will this last? All we have to do is look at Lahaina. And so that's my question. It's a lot, but possible solutions. I've created a new podcast to talk about it, and it's an daunting task, and I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like, thank you, Rye, for all the work that you do for the community and like in this time as well. Just making sure that the ocean is spotlighted and platformed, especially when it didn't get a lot of coverage, and that you're standing up also for the BIPOC community that has been facing a lot of threats but not been getting a lot of support for the fire recovery. I obviously don't have, any direct helpful answers per se, but I do have like some resources or offerings perhaps. I think this is a really important narrative that you do really well on social media with your Instagram lives and like all of your videos. But really, like, what I've found helpful is finding ways to build coalition to maximize your reach through collab posts and finding media outlets and other ways, especially like creative outlets through folks on LinkedIn and folks that are either getting big on Instagram or already have a platform to really share this kind of underdog story. I think like obviously the visuals of some of the whales that have been washing up that I've been seeing are powerful, and like making sure that they're able to like utilize some of those visuals to grab people's attention, and then not just doing like beyond the fundraisers side of thing, like really doing the community building and aspect. And like I don't know, even at Altasea, which shout out to Altasea, like if you can do a community event around that. I know you guys are probably all hands on deck right now and it's a pretty busy time for you. But like it might be really interesting to do that. I know you've probably thought about these ideas, but if anyone else here has some recommendations, feel free to share them with Ryan. And maybe Ryan, you can drop your Instagram as well so people can support if they can. And then yeah, again, we're always resources, and I'm sure the Terra community is as well. Thank you for sharing that, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We're just at this point looking for answers, and all I can do is report what Gila Bay has been already able to find. And
Right.
people, swimmers are idiots. They're going to get out in the water no matter what the waves look like. If they're disgusting and they say there's some stuff in the water that could probably kill you in 10 years, we'll still get in the water. But yeah, and also people don't like to hear bad news. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we kind of have to be. I like to be blunt. But yeah, in the essence of time, I really appreciate your insight.
Thank you, Rye. And yeah, like I think let's all give Rye a helping hand if you can, please, because it's definitely a time where community's more important than ever before.
Thank you.
Amazing. And I'm just going to bring us all to a close and make sure people have time to check the chat because there's Instagram handles and emails being shared. So definitely take a minute or two to jot those down. Otherwise, it's been such a pleasure to host a space for Bodhi Patil and everybody that's here today. I personally learned a lot, and I think this is really just the beginning of a lot of community advocacy that we have at our hands to do. And this particular session will be uploaded onto YouTube in the next few days. So I know there's some people that said you want to go back and rewatch it. It's definitely available on YouTube. Make sure you check the channel. And I look forward to let's continue to stay in touch and continue the conversation after the session. With that, thank you all. Enjoy your Monday.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh, you guys are amazing.
Cheers.
Thank you. Well, you said you're going to leave it up a little bit for the links and stuff, right?
Yeah, for
Perfect.
sure.